Hello, and welcome to So You Think You Can Rule Persia, the podcast where we rate and review all the kings of Persia from Diocles to Yazdegerd III. I'm Sariel, and my pronouns are they, them.
And I'm Umberto, and my pronouns are he, him. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 87, Ardashir III.
87? Oof.
Yep.
Okay.
Where we get to find out, will this small child save the empire? Will he die ignominiously? Will he just kind of be okay and be broadly unremarkable? Many options abound.
So listen.
Yes.
I will never, I just want to relive that high of having a king crowned before they're born and then actually being one of the coolest, most successful kings in the Persian Empire history that we have recorded. That was incredible.
Exactly.
That was such an episode. That was so good. I did not expect it at all. I'm sure for everyone who knew the history of Persia before, they were like, oh, Sariel doesn't know what they're in for. But that was so cool. This is why you don't spoil things, people. But
exactly. So you find out what
this happened in the first third or first half of our podcast. And I know that we are in the decline. I know that we're in the middle of just bad stuff happening. Of course, as you might have noticed, we have not reached the modern era. And I do know that technically you could consider that the Persian Empire continues up until, the 70s or so?
Depending on definitions, yes.
Yeah, so it depends
until
on,
1979
But
is
I'm
the last Shah of Iran.
So sure, there's more history. But we're also close to what Umberto has considered the end of at least this first season of the podcast. I know that we have multiple emperors in the span of, a few years. So, we're not with the same circumstances that we were when our previous king, child king, who was it, Shapur?
I mean, Shapur II was the fetus king, yes.
So, my prediction is going to be we're not going to have a great run this time. I will be very impressed if this child makes it for the next, 5 years.
We'll find out. I mean, Khosrow II was a relatively inexperienced teen, and he did great until he didn't.
Was a teen.
True.
This kid is a kid.
He's 7 years old. He'll do fine, Sariel. He's a big boy.
So who's going to be the regent? And why are we not... Because that's the other thing. If this went well, then we would probably have an episode on the regent and then one on the child.
We haven't had regent episodes, to be fair.
We haven't?
Not really.
Okay, that's fair.
Shapur II was just all his time, so it's cool. He might reign for 100 years and still be alive now, but, we'll have to find out.
Okay, well, surprise me then.
So, Sarah, what do you remember from last time? Any bright spots or dark spots from Kavad II?
I remember that I hated him.
Correct.
I had a bad time. He made some ridiculous decisions that led to the further decline of the empire. He usurped and then was not ready to rule.
Yeah.
He usurped at a terrible time, too. And he was like, oops, actually, I don't want anything to do with this. Which, same, bestie.
Yes.
And we made a peace with the Romans that it was not great. And now we're basically under their boot. We immediately lost Egypt, that we had somehow gotten back.
Yes.
And we're being invaded and everything is bad. And just,
Correct.
And in the meantime,
also the
Kavad
plague.
somehow just focused on trying to seduce his mother. Well, not his actual mother, but his his stepmother, the wife of the previous king, who he killed, along with the rest of his family. So we also have no heirs in the proper succession, other than Kavad's child. So yeah, Did I leave anything out? There were so
Fun
many
times.
things.
Well, yeah, so I'll just give a bit of a recap on Kavad. So Kavad II was born as Shiroi, and, well, he overthrew his father, Khosrow II. He then basically tried to take over the empire. He made peace with the Romans. It's unclear what the peace was, but it was broadly surrender most of the conquests that have been made in the last 20 years and just go back to status quo. Is that cool? Cool. Okay, bye. The problem is that a lot of people didn't really accept the peace. Most notably, Sharbaraz, the general of the West, who is just now sitting in Syria with his depleted but still there army, wondering why he has to follow a peace treaty that he had no say in making. And then the plague came through the empire and killed between a third and half of the population. And also Kavad.
True, I forgot. This is how he died.
Yes. Yep. Also, famine is coming because half the people who grow food are dead. That's not good.
Yeah, the horsemen
That's
of the
not
apocalypse
a way
tend to band
sustain an
together, you
economy.
know.
Exactly. So at long last, as you mentioned, Kavad killed all possible heirs in his generation. So the only people who are potential heirs are women or children. So Kavad's son Ardashir is tapped with the unenviable task of, save the empire, please, child. You can do this. I'm sure it'll be fine.
I'm sure you know what
Guess
to
you
do.
barely learned how to read, but still. You can surely save us all. So alright, let's get started with Ardashir III. Ardashir was born sometime in 621 as the son of Shiroi at the time, and later Kavad II, and a Roman woman. So again, he's also following up the pattern of being part Roman. When toddler Ardashir was growing up, this was a period where everything wasn't really going perfectly, but Khosrow still controlled 3/4 of the Roman Empire, so everything is going to be good forever and nothing will ever go wrong, and he'll totally manage to finish that sculpture on a mountain.
Yeah. Oh my god, that was so disappointing. I will never forgive you.
It was very sad, I know.
God.
It's very disappointing, I'm sorry.
We should have done a throwback. Like, if this was a video show, we should have done a throwback to every time of me saying during that episode, oh, I can't wait to see this relief. Oh, that sounds awesome. Just,
yeah,
you know.
it would have been awesome.
Put sad rain sounds over my voice.
But then the bad times came, and Kavad killed Grandpa Khosrow and all the uncles that were adults. And then he ruled for a grand total of 6 months when he suddenly caught the plague and died. So, hooray, Ardashir, you've been promoted. Congratulations, you're at the head of your family and in charge of the empire. What's going on? The problem is, the nobles have no better candidates. It's either choose women or other children, so you might as well just go the direct line of succession and sure, I guess this'll do. So the nobles elected the 7-year-old Ardashir III as king. And all we need to do is just finish a war, deal with the plague, and control the famine that's going to follow. But fortunately enough, there was somebody to take care of things for little Ardashir. There was a regent, a man called Meadur Gushnasp, who was the nephew of the Ispabudan brothers Bestam and Bendoy from the beginning of Khosrow's episode. Remember the uncles at the time?
Yep.
Well,
we said they might.
This is one generation down.
They might have pushed Kavad to do what he did to take over, and you know.
Yeah, this is the same family that has been sponsoring Kavad, so makes sense. So Meadur Gushnasp is at the head of the empire now, and Ardashir probably didn't know what was going on because he's a baby. He's not meant to be ruling empires. He was apparently nicknamed the Little One.
Oh.
Because he is a small fellow and he doesn't have much to do with anything, but he tries. In his coins, we can clearly see that he's a child. He has cute little chubby cheeks and no beard. And it's interesting to note that at the beginning of his reign, he has a crown that looks a lot like his father's, like Kavad's. But then, presumably, as people start to remember Khosrow and say, things were going a lot better under Khosrow than now. Weren't those the good old days? Ardashir has a new crown, which looks a lot like the one of his grandfather instead of his father, because maybe we should try and imitate the time when things were going well, because oh no.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think this regent is going to do? Do you think he's going to be a terrible, terrible person? Or do you think he's going to be, no, just a nice, helpful, make sure Ardashir grows up to a ripe old age
Oh,
and
come on. Like, he's just going to take over,
meantime.
clearly. Just cut it out.
Well, Serial.
Oh.
Meadr Gushnasp was not the typical snake of a regent that you'd imagine, but actually cared for the safety of Ardashir and the well-being of the empire.
Oh my god.
So he tried to just, put the empire first, make sure it was governed appropriately, and, raise the little baby king to grow up properly and be a good king.
Wow.
He tried to stabilize the political situation of the empire and went about reestablishing order and promoting some degree of social justice. According to Al-Tabari, he was so capable in governing that nobody would have been able to tell that Ardashir was underage if they hadn't known it.
Wow.
They would have thought, oh, everything is just normal and cool.
Incredible.
So, nice. The regency is going well, but that doesn't mean that we don't have problems, because if you remember, Khosrow I's reforms had made it so that the leaders of the main imperial armies now have a lot of power. And with the center being weak, now each of these armies follow their leader mainly, and don't really respond much to central authority. So this allowed for raids into the empire from the north and south, with some Khazar nomads raiding through the Caucasus and outright conquering Caucasian Albania, which would be their base for further raids. And also, some Arab tribes are raiding from Arabia into Mesopotamia, which is never fun. Ardashir then appointed a prominent noble, incidentally the same one who convinced Kavad to kill all his brothers. This man was appointed as head of all the armies in an attempt to calm things down. Now, another problem is that Kavad had concluded a peace with Rome, right? It wasn't a great peace, but it was a compromise. The Romans gave, we gave. It was all right, I guess.
Yeah.
Shame we had to go through 2 decades of war for it, but fine, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that Sharbaraz, who is in control of the western provinces, of the bits that are now legally the Romans, he's just refusing to move. He's just saying, I conquered these lands, I'm just going to stay here and wait. So, are we still at war?
Yeah.
Are we at peace? What's going on right now? Also, Sharbaraz had been the supreme leader of the Sassanid armies, but now he's been replaced, so where does he stand legally? What's going on here? Everything's a bit messy. So it looks like Ardashir had his hands full just trying to deal with the empire itself. But an emperor who had some free time was Heraclius, because he wanted to make sure that the peace he concluded with Kavad was respected. So he wrote directly to Sharbaraz and made some suggestions. He wrote to Sharbaraz and said, hey, listen, if you leave these conquered provinces, you can just be free to return to Ctesiphon, where you can use your full political weight to influence the court. The center is fragile now. If you want to control the king, you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
You also have an army. If your army's around Ctesiphon, it'll be a lot more effective in pressuring the government than otherwise. If not, if Sharbaraz decided to continue staying there, then the Khazar nomads were allies of the Romans and could be persuaded to increase their raids, especially into the family lands of Sharbaraz.
I'm still trying to get over the fact that this man was actually a good regent and care about our little boy king.
Ardashir is doing well.
Like,
he's trying.
I'm still in awe. I don't know if you've
He's
noticed that
very
I've been
nice.
very
We just-
pessimistic about our future lately.
That's fine.
Hey, that way I can get surprised pleasantly.
Yeah, it might be good.
Pleasantly
Might be
surprised
nice
instead
things
of
might
horribly disappointed. I'll take it.
Yeah. But yeah, so the Romans are saying, okay, Sharbaraz, you can leave the territory and accept the peace, and in exchange, you can have political influence, or you can stay where you are, but the nomads will raid your family lands, and now that they've made peace with Tang China, they're not distracted anymore, so they can just fully smash you. So be smart, do the correct thing. Heraclius also then wrote in this letter that they were going to negotiate a different peace. They're going to make a more favorable peace now with Sharbaraz. If he wasn't happy with the original treaty, the Romans were going to concede a bit more. That would be fine. Because Shahbaraz had worked to gain all these lands in the past 30 years of his life. But Heraclius apparently, and we're not certain of this, but it looks like he may have conceded a border on the Euphrates, which would be a great gain if it had been any other war, because this would allow the Sassanid Empire to incorporate the great cities of Dara, Edessa, and Amida, which would be extremely prestigious gains if it had been a war like the one of Khosrow I. Like, this is something, from back in, as you were mentioning, back in the Shapur II days, where everything is just a really good peace deal.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, Shahbaraz could use this better peace treaty to tell the rest of people in Iran, saying, hey, listen, Kavad was able to get a worse peace treaty. Now the Roman Emperor spoke with me, and everything's better now. So
that's so nice. Like,
maybe trust
this
me.
is so nice. Like, Kavad up so bad with this.
Yeah.
This is such a relief. I like it. Okay.
Good.
Like, it's not perfect, but, like, it's better.
So Shahbaraz, the ruler of the West, decides, you know what, these are good peace deals. He will respect the Roman peace and return back into the borders of the empire.
Mm-hmm.
And he began the withdrawal of the Sassanid occupation force and met up with Heraclius in person at the edge of Anatolia in July of 629. And at this meeting, a few things happened. First of all, the peace treaty was formally signed. Brilliant. Done. Shahbaraz handed over a piece of the True Cross that had been taken from Jerusalem during the conquest and gave it to Heraclius, saying, hey, you're the Christian emperor. You can keep this. And third, Heraclius proclaimed Shahbaraz as the legitimate king of kings of Iran.
Mm-hmm.
Now.
Yep. Tell me about it.
Can you see the problem with this?
Wait, he was promoted as wait, what?
The Roman Emperor has proclaimed the former governor of the Western Territories and the guy who had been resisting the peace from before proclaimed him king of kings.
Dude. It's not on you to decide. I believe.
Well, Maurice decided Khosrow II should be king of kings.
Yeah. But, like, why? No. Don't we get a say? Like, how does it work?
Well, he is the guy with the army, and our nice regent in Ctesiphon doesn't really have an army. And the baby king is a baby.
No.
So, not ideal.
What do we do?
Well,
There's
also another exciting thing which happened, which, quite shocking, is that Shahbaraz betrothed his daughter to the son of Heraclius. Something that is more shocking is that Heraclius acted as godfather to the baptism of Shahbaraz's eldest son, Nicetas, who took up this name on his baptism, and his daughter Nike, implying the possibility of a Christian king of kings if all this worked out. Although some people even say that Shahbaraz himself was a Christian, which would be a shocking development, but could also make sense considering that Khosrow was very religiously tolerant, so he could have had an important general be a Christian. Unexpected, but cool. And yeah, Nike would be married to Heraclius' son, while Nicetas remained with the Romans as a general and a hostage, just in case. And for those of you who are reading ahead, he would later fight and survive the Battle of Yarmouk, which is a big name, but Serial, you'll find out in 5 episodes.
Yeah, I'm just here nodding, being like, sure.
So, okay. The regent, Merdr Gusnasp, finds all of this, and he discovers, oh wait, I'm the regent to somebody without an army, and there's somebody threatening us. Does somebody want to prepare for a siege, please? So they prepare for a long siege of Ctesiphon, fearing the worst because, oh no, a usurper is coming. And incidentally, Shahbaraz is a relative of Bahram Chobin, so that gives him some sort of legitimacy.
Okay, well, I guess we don't have much to pull from.
Yeah, also, for like the common person on the street, the alternative is a legitimate king who is a baby.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Or a war hero who is illegitimate.
We don't really have that much. like to fight
Yeah,
with.
also, a war hero who had managed to gain a better peace with the Romans
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
is now just marching on Ctesiphon and was proclaimed King of Kings by the Roman Emperor.
Yep.
The balance of legitimacy is shifting away from baby Ardashir. So what happened is that Sharbaraz withdrew from Roman territory, and having left the western regions, he faced off against the Khazar raiders. He tried to first attack with Arab cavalry that was destroyed by the nomads, but Sharbaraz eventually managed to gain a solid enough victory that he could turn his gaze south.
Mm-hmm.
This coincided with Tang China capturing the two Turkic Khagans, which ended up collapsing the Turkic Khaganate almost overnight. So the nomad threat is gone, and at least from the Iranian point of view, it looks like Sharbaraz did it. So, good for him, I guess. But now, close to Ctesiphon, with the support received from Heraclius, his recent victory, and the weakness of Ardashir, Sharbaraz decides to march on the capital and make himself King of Kings. With the official pretext being that he wasn't consulted with the election of Ardashir as king, so he wasn't legitimate. Like, who did these Ispabadan nobles think they are choosing the king? Clearly that's illegitimate, so now Sharbaraz goes to make himself king.
Yeah.
So yeah, he began by besieging the city with his 6,000 men, which is embarrassingly little compared to the tens of thousands he'd had at the beginning of the war, but time hasn't been kind to us. This is the army that failed to take Constantinople like a decade ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. But these were very few men, so they couldn't take the city. What do you think that the nobles inside the city did at this point to try and win this?
Are they under siege?
They are under siege. The city is surrounded by Sharbaraz's soldiers, but Sharbaraz doesn't have enough soldiers to break through by force because it's a big city. It's well fortified.
I guess we can't be under siege forever. Like, that's how a siege works. You just starve the city.
So how could the nobles make sure they win?
Do they give up something to... Like, do they... Like, we can't attack, right?
Nope, don't have enough soldiers for that.
We would have. So either we continue the siege forever, and we're like, oh, we have enough food, or we, like, make a peace with the invaders.
No, Serial.
Like,
the nobles have a cunning plan. The nobles have a very cunning plan.
Oh no, is this a bad one?
Yes. They decide that, you know what? Defending against Sharbaraz sounds like a lot of work. The best way to come out on top is if we secretly open the gates of the city to him, and he can just go in and pay us afterwards. I mean, did we really care about the Child King? It's fine.
How is that? Like, you're winning! Like, the siege is not working. He can't get through the gates. What are we...
But
I thought about that, but then I was like, but then we won't win. What?
But the nobles who open the gates will. They'll be appointed to high office. Because nobles are short-sighted, Serial.
I should have known that, like, greed for power is just always the same. Complete disregard for everyone else. What? Like...
These also weren't just any nobles, Serial. They were the overall commander of the armies that Ardashir had appointed some time before, and the leader of the armies of the East, who was member of the Suren family and just probably wanted a change in government. Sure, why not side with Sharbaraz? He's clearly having the legitimacy on his side. Why not? So yeah, Sharbaraz managed to storm through the city in January or February of 630. He killed all the nobles that had enthroned Ardashir, especially the nice regent Meadur Gushnasp, who had tried to hold everything together so hard. The man gave it his best. He did what he could. Also, some of the nobles were sent to Constantinople, probably as part of the peace deal, to be judged by Romans. And then...
I guess this is what we're doing now.
It's harsh times. And so yeah, on the 27th of April 630, Sharbaraz decided to take the final step. He ordered the murder of the 9-year-old Ardashir III and took the throne for himself. And with this, he became the second non-Sassanid after Bahram Chobin to become King of Kings since the Arsacids were kicked out.
I hate it here.
Now our baby king is dead, and we have a usurper on the throne, and there are no legitimate members of the royal family left. exciting times ahead. So, Serial, what did you think?
Yippee! I guess. Honestly, it went...
Can you tell why the podcast is ending soon?
Yeah, it went better than I expected it to go. Because I fully,
Could have been worse.
Yeah, I fully thought that this was gonna get shut down immediately.
No, Ardashir managed to, live a little and survive before he was brutally killed for his throne. So, yay! Hooray! But yeah, how well do you think Shabraz is going to do, Serial? We'll find out next time,
Honestly,
but predictions.
Very curious, because he really wanted this throne, so there you go.
Yeah, is he going to do a good
All
job
yours.
at it? Yeah. Again,
choke on it.
This is the sort of wild choice of the Empire isn't doing well, why do you want this job? What?
Yep.
I guess maybe you have a savior complex where you think, oh no, I'm the only one who can fix this, so stand back everybody, watch me do a flip. But yeah.
We're watching. Go on.
And yeah, we'll find out next week if he succeeds or if everything comes tumbling down even harder than before. Very well. Then yeah, Serial, are you ready to rate baby Ardashir III?
Yeah, I mean, let's do it.
Let's go. Our first category is final moments. How interesting was his death? Being executed for his throne by an ambitious noble who has decided the time of the Sassanids is gone. We don't have much detail, but, being killed at 9, not fun. How would you rate that on our scales?
It's
not terribly exciting. It's just a bit of it's just sad, He's a kid. He did nothing for this. It's not his fault, but yeah. I'd honestly put a 1, because it's just we know he was executed, but otherwise, I don't know if you want to give him some extra points for anything, but we don't know very much. It's not like he knew Shabraz well. He was just a kid. Shabraz had left Iran in the decades since Ardashir had been born. So, yeah, I think I'm going to go for a 1. How about you?
Yeah, I don't, not the most riveting sort of, which good for the kid. Just, man, I'm still caught up on, this all happening. You give me a bit of hope to my very pessimistic outlook, and then you were like, actually, no. I'm like, well...
If only everybody decided to just stay still and follow the rules, things would have worked out better. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, because the regent was
adulthood, and it would have been fine.
The regent was actually.
The regent was doing a great job despite everything. Yes.
Yeah. What is the word? Competent.
Yeah.
And it's a tough situation because the empire is in shambles. So good on him for taking the job and making the most out of it. Something tells me that this new guy is yay, I'm king. Oh no, everything sucks, and then immediately dies. So, not high hopes.
Yeah, find out if that's true. Goodness. But yeah, so what's your final moment score?
A 1.
Fair enough. So with the 1 and a 1, he gets a 1 out of 10 for final moments. Our next category is battle hardness. How good was he at war and fighting? Withstood a siege for a little bit. It was enough that it became a little bit uncomfortable for the nobles, so they decided, why not betray everyone and just enjoy our victory. So, I mean, Ardashir himself, nothing, because he's a child. But, the one thing that you might consider is that Shabraz did win a victory against the Khazars. But that was kind of when he was already declaring himself King of Kings, so I don't think Ardashir gets any credit for that. Yeah, do you want to give him anything for, withstanding the siege long enough to be betrayed, or is that not even worth it?
No, that's not really,
Fair enough.
I was gonna say that's not really his doing, but I guess having a well-organized city that withstands a siege, properly requires some good organizing, some good planning and strategizing.
Yeah, I mean,
but he lost because his nobles are, fine. Nobling around.
Yep.
So
that's the job of the nobles, to mess everything up for everyone. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go for a 0. Are you matching?
Yep.
Okay, so with a 0 and a 0, we get a 0 out of 20 for battle hardness. Our next category is scheminess. How good was he at plots and manipulations? He was a child.
Yep.
He did no plots or manipulations. He maybe learned how to lie and that was a thing people did. That's as far as the kid got. So, yep, I think 0 all round. So with a 0 and a 0, he gets a 0 out of 20 for scheminess.
Yep.
Our next category is shock factor. How shocking was this man? He was a child king. That's a little bit shocking, I guess. That's it.
Yep.
You know?
Yeepy.
Do you think that's worth anything, or is it just...
There's...
Because we haven't had many child kings in the Sassanid Empire, to be fair. We've only had Shapur II. He is the second child king.
That's true.
But do you think it's worth anything at all?
I don't think so. Like, I'm not that shocked. I don't know.
Fair.
It's...
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know what to
0.
tell you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really trying, but I'm
Yeah.
like, you know. Because mostly we've been following, like, he also hasn't done much himself. Like, other than being a kid.
Exactly.
Maybe I'll give it a 1, so it's like, you give it a 0 and I give it a 1, and then it's like a half.
Okay. I feel
for
that's
the fact
fair.
that he is a child.
Very well.
But, like, we've been following the regent, and then we've been following the king that is going to usurp, and, like, that's, you know.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Good compromise. So with a 0 and a 1, he gets a 1 out of 20 for shock factor. Our next category is Aaron Shine. How good was he for the Empire in general and Iran in particular? So, well.
So.
Well, first of all, positives. Aladi tells us that the regent was doing such a good job that nobody would have been able to tell that the king was a child. He was just trying to handle everything. We're still in the aftershocks of plague, and we're dealing with the famine that's following it. So, you know, we're trying to help. The regent is doing, according to the sources, as good a job as could be done. So that's keeping the empire at least stable. On the upside, if you want to consider it, Shahbaraz has negotiated a better treaty with Rome to slightly expand the empire and give it land up to the Euphrates River. That would be good. How much do you want to give it to Ardashir as opposed to Shahbaraz, who is sort of doing it for himself because he's being proclaimed king? Is a different question.
Yeah.
Then on the downside, we have that there are raids from the Arabs and the nomads up in the north, so that's not great for the empire. And then the big thing is that the royal court doesn't really control the periphery anymore. The great noble families of the east and of the west, they all have their armies, and the empire doesn't have one anymore because we lost a lot during the war with the Romans. And so now these two armies are basically doing whatever, and Shahbaraz has managed to usurp the throne and kill a bunch of people. And now he's in charge, and the line of legitimacy is really broken now because it was a little bit broken with Ardashir having to become king as a child. Now that he has been usurped by some guy who has an army, that's not good for the future. But again, you can ask how much blame to put on his administration.
I guess.
Just as a reference, we gave Kavad 2 points for Aaron Shine for the mess. I feel like Ardashir isn't as bad. I feel like he's more in like 3 territory because things are getting worse, but it's not his fault or his regent's fault. He's just trying to rage against the dying of the light. But otherwise, So, yeah, I'm thinking a 3. Are you going to match or have other alternatives?
Yeah, I think I am going to match. I don't really see a reason to go any higher.
Very well.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. So with a 3 and a 3, he gets a 6 out of 20 for Aaron Shine. Our next category is Face of Faces. What do you think this child looked like?
Like a child.
Yes.
Like a baby.
I will send you his crowns because he had 2 crowns. One is the Kavad style and one is the Khosrow style.
I see. Everyone wanted to forget about Kavad because, you know.
Exactly. Like probably at the start they decided, we'll just imitate Kavad because it was his dad and everything. And then afterwards people thought, actually, things were a lot better under Khosrow. Why don't we just try and recall that good old day? So, there you go.
Mm-hmm. Ardashir?
Yep.
Which is also a name we haven't seen in a while.
Yeah, Ardashir, there was just like Ardashir I was the founder, of course, Ardashir the Great, and then Ardashir II is the brother of Shapur II, who just came right after him. I mean, Serial, we're soon going to get a Yazdegerd III, and we haven't had one of those in a while.
Yeah, because the first two Yazdegerds were like fairly early on.
Yeah, they were in like the 400s. It's been 200 years or so.
Yeah.
Okay, so Serial has finished their drawing. Let me pick it up and I'll describe it to you all. Oh,
Yep.
That's very cute and very sad at the same time.
Yep.
So what we have here is little baby Ardashir. He is wearing robes that are way too big for him. He is just drowning in these robes because there's so many. And he has a lovely crown, which is massive for him. And he's just like holding it up with one hand and just like there's a big floppy sleeve out the other end. And he just looks so tiny and defenseless. The poor child. I'm sorry it had to end this way.
I mean, we barely even talked about him. Like, that's what I was saying, right? So.
Yeah, that's right. He was just around. Poor kid. But yeah, thank you, Serial. For those of you who would like to see this drawing, you can go on the Discord if you're a patron, on our website in Serial's Portrait Gallery, or on the episode notes in the description.
Yep.
Now, Serial, let me show you what he actually looked like.
Do we have anything?
Behold.
Well, that's what? Explain, because this is a man.
I mean, he doesn't have a beard though, so I guess that's.
But
that's
it's not a
babyface for them.
7-year-old.
No,
it's a
I
dude
assume the dye engraver
with long
didn't
hair
know
in a bun or
what to do.
ponytail.
Yes, this definitely does not look like that age of child.
However, you did mention that the regent did a lot of work to like not let people know that the king was that young.
Maybe, yeah.
So it wouldn't be so like vulnerable. So I could see.
Maybe you're saying no, he's just a teen. It's actually fine.
Yeah, I could see how they wouldn't like just put a child on their coins.
That would be
just
depressing.
A young man, hasn't grown his beard yet, but like it's a fine coin. It's another profile coin with a fairly stylized sort of style, with a male figure with long curly hair in a bun or ponytail, wearing some cool necklaces, the crown with wings, and there's some writing around the coin, and he's also got a cool earring and big eyes. Yeah.
Very big eyes. I do like the return to the Khosrow crown, because I think every crown is improved by wings.
Yep. The wings are so good. Yeah.
And how would you rate this coin then?
It's a fine coin. I guess it's interesting, so I'll give it like a 2 instead of a 1, but like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think there's
1 because it's contemporary, and 2 because it's interesting that, it's not a child, but also it reflects a young king nonetheless. It's sort of, cool.
Makes sense. Okay, so with a 2 and a 2, he gets a 1 out of 5 for Face of Faces.
Mm-hmm.
Our next category is lengthiness. How long did you think this child reigned?
Like 2 years?
That's close enough, actually. He reigned for a year and a half.
Okay. Because I was thinking...
Which is, pretty
the
much.
regent must have had enough time to make the peace with Rome and organize some stuff. So it couldn't have been like, a few months. Because stuff actually happened.
Yeah, exactly. And, there had to be a whole civil war and a usurpation, and that took a bit. Okay, so 1.5 years divided by 10 gives us a 0.15 out of 5 for lengthiness. Which brings us to the final score, which is a grand total of 9.15 out of 100, which places Ardashir III above Bahram III and below Orodes I and Balash. So he is the worst Sassanid.
But like, can you blame him? He barely got a chance. He wasn't even ruling himself. Like, I don't,
Yeah, I know. I'm not going to judge him too harshly.
Don't blame him. It's fine.
It happened. Yeah. And that brings us to the final question, which is to say, is he small enough? Is he helpless enough? Is he forgotten enough to be a Shahanshah? Or is he just a Shahanah?
Other than the fact that he is one of the 2 child kings,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anything, so I would say no.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ardashir.
He deserved better, but not his fault, I guess.
I'm sorry, you are Shahana. You're going to have to head off into the desert to meet your father and question him on why did he not have a backup heir. Come on,
Yep.
man. You just need to leave one brother alive. But Sarah, I'm also wondering, should we give a VIP seat to the regent for doing a good job and trying his
Honestly,
best?
yeah.
Despite failing in the
Like,
end.
I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm glad that he was there
Very
and
good.
he actually tried.
So, congratulations, Meader Gushnasp. You can at least go in the viewing booth of the Paradise Gardens and watch the royal hunt at the end. We're getting there. We're getting close, so find a nice seat before they run out.
Yeah.
And that is the end of our episode. Thank you all for listening. We hope you had a good time listening to the untimely end of Ardashir III. And we hope you'll all join us to hear about Shahbraz and whether he was right to take the throne. Maybe he's the only man who can fix anything. Or if he did a terrible, terrible thing and now everything is even more unstable and the empire is going to collapse into an abyss of doom. Either or, whichever. Give it a go. In the meantime, if you'd like to support us, there are many ways to do so. For example, you could join our Patreon with our new patron, Kevin Taylor, where you'll get access to a bunch of extra episodes. You have access to a Discord, a series of different people who are even not rulers from around Iran and the empire in the time periods we've covered so far. Also, you get a choice in what the next episodes will be, and you can help support the podcast, which we appreciate.
Hell yeah.
If instead you'd rather not support us monetarily, then we also appreciate if you could give us a review on your podcast app of choice, or just tell people that we exist. You could just give a simple review suggesting your favorite episode and saying start from there. It's always something that people look for when starting a podcast, so that's a good place to start from.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, in that case, I think without any further ado, we hope you have a lovely week, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.